very heavy, let it sit overnight. Scrub the grout with an old toothbrush.
Hi, everyone. You are live with my as yet to be named show. We'll call it Cathy Reisenwitz right now. And so I want to introduce my guest today. I have two for the price of one. I invited Objectivist Girl, a.k.a. Lauren Rumpler, on first of all, and then she brought a friend, Robert Kruger, who I've talked to in the past. He is from Voluntary Virtues and other projects. She is from the aforementioned Objectivist Girl, but also has a new show coming out. It's already started. It's getting some momentum. So Lauren, Robert, thank you so much for coming on. Tell us a little bit more about your shows. Lauren first.
You're muted, Lauren.
Oh, there we go. Got it. I didn't know I had control over that. So, my show, Objectivist Girl, teaches about objectivism and informs people about the philosophy of objectivism. And I believe that this is beneficial for people to learn about because it allows people to pursue their own rational self-interest and hopefully build a better life for themselves through rationality and reason.
Very nice. And so is this is the show that you're doing by yourself, but then you've got kind of a new project with Carlos Morales of
Truth Over Comfort. Yeah.
Truth Over Comfort, exactly, yes.
So yes, we are doing True Objective, and this show is to expose the lies and deceit that our government is purporting to us. Our first show was on Newspeak, and we did a Memorial Day special where we talked about supporting the troops is in conflict with being anti-war. So that was an interesting show and got a lot of traffic.
Very nice. Now, Robert, tell us about Voluntary Virtues and then any other projects that you have going on.
Well, I'm co-host on Voluntary Virtues with Michael Shanklin. He had started this great project doing an expansion with adding shows like yours and Lauren's. I ran into Michael when we were arguing back and forth with Storm Clouds Gathering about anarcho-capitalism, and kind of hit it off, and so we just discuss a variety of news articles that we see, anything that pops into our mind that's of interest, sometimes just topics that we'd like to discuss and explore. We do interviews with various different people in the liberty movement and people who are kind of on the peripheral of the liberty movement. We've had people like Rocking Mystery, which I think that you might find of interest, a former MRA, and we've had all of the anarcho-capitalist speakers like Tom Woods and so on. I'm right now trying to negotiate with some of the atheist community, big name speakers. I'm pretty sure I'm going to be able to get the Thinking Atheist to come on the show, and also Aaron Ra, looking at that as a possibility. Michael, of course, is bringing on all sorts of great guests. We recently had a guest that was starting a new project, working on their voluntary replacement for the police, for the fire department, and so on, and that was really cool.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting.
Yeah, it was. In my own part, I'm working on a radio show called We Were Deceived. I did do a video debunking a video done by Storm Clouds Gathering called Storm Clouds Gathering was deceived when it comes to anarcho-capitalism. It's gotten a lot of good positive reviews, a lot of positive feedback on that. The radio station I'm currently working with is JRev Radio. Been experiencing a lot of technical difficulties lately, so we're trying to get things worked out so that I can actually just have the show going full forward. Then also I'm going to be doing Voluntary Virtues After Hours with the Krug, being me, which would be a carryover from the normal show time of Voluntary Virtues. We found that often we'll continue to talk after the show is over when it goes to off-air, and those conversations can get quite interesting and enjoyable. So we're going to continue the conversation on another broadcast moving forward. So
I didn't know JREV was having so many technical issues, because True Objective is going to be on JREV.
Yeah, it's I don't know. It may be just me. I don't know. I've not seen any technical difficulties. Really been a problem for other people necessarily. There was one day where it was affecting everybody, but I don't know. So
it's an inside job, Krug. It's an inside job.
Oh my gosh, guys!
I'm just joking with you.
So
okay, so is this a new? Is JREV the new network? Because I know there was Voluntary Virtues, which was a show, and then it seems like
they broke off from LRN, from LRN.
Okay.
Yeah, they had some sort of conflict, and
it was LMR.
LMR, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, and so now it's its own thing. So it's a whole network of shows. Some of them, I guess, are coming over, and some of them are brand new. This is a brand new show. Lauren's is a new show. We've got the Voluntary Virtues After Hours, which is a new thing. So want to put in a plug for that. Check that out. If you have an idea for a show, contact Michael Shanklin, the voice of God that just showed up out of nowhere. Okay, so that's cool. These are some really awesome things. At the end of the show, if I don't remember to, be sure to tell everyone when and where they can find your shows so that they can tune in. I just want to go through a little bit before we get started on the topic of the half hour, talk about what's been going on in the news lately. Andrew Stiles at the Washington Free Beacon said, President Obama referred to the sport of soccer as football during a press conference in Brussels on Thursday, raising questions about his commitment to America. I thought that was pretty hilarious that in the face of a warrantless wiretapping, illegal wars, broken promises to close Gitmo, and restore due process, we're worried about what the president calls soccer. What do you guys think about this? What do you guys think about the whole Bergdahl situation?
Well, I find it incredibly interesting that our government thinks that they should be getting involved in this in the first place. So,
getting involved as far as like Bergdahl should have been left to the Taliban, or getting involved as far as close Gitmo? Like, what are your more specific thoughts?
I personally don't think that we should be getting involved in other people's business. I think these are other countries with their own responsibilities, and I think that we shouldn't have been involved in the first place. And Absolutely. It just keeps getting progressively worse as we're getting involved.
Right. Same kind of thoughts.
I would just say that the trade for Bergdahl, okay, fine, whatever. Unfortunately, they're probably going to prosecute him for desertion, which means bad things. Quite frankly, I think that every military personnel who does not end up, opting out in some fashion out of the military is doing themselves and others a disservice. I mean, realistically, there's only one action that I would potentially want them to take, which would be to put an end to the tyranny from Washington. Yeah, the wars are horrible. We shouldn't be there. And as far as the soccer thing, it's laughable. It's just, warrantless wiretaps are certainly a far more bigger breach of what America stands for than, oh wow, I used a word that, I called this an enchilada instead of, some bread with cheese or whatever. It's just stupid.
As far as the wiretapping, I find it interesting that they named it the Patriot Act in the first place in order to pass wiretapping, and that no one bothered to read it, no one bothered to take any interest in it, and I think that that's gotten us in a lot of trouble over the years. I mean, that plays right into my Newspeak episode on True Objective. I mean, that's just another way that they push through legislation is by pushing the idea that this is the best thing for America by words like patriot.
Right. Patriotism is the, acceptable good way to say nationalism. We see nationalism. I mean, that's the whole football thing is you're an American and you need to talk about sports the way we talk about sports in America. And I mean, I agree that soccer, I mean, the op-ed said soccer is a profoundly obnoxious enterprise. Completely agreed. It's kind of like the whole when Americans end their emails with cheers. Listen, I mean, I'm embarrassed to be an American sometimes too, but to pretend otherwise, I don't think is the way to go about it. But I think we need to have a conversation about nationalism in this country. You know, however you want to paint it up, whether it's patriotism, American exceptionalism, you know, saying cheers or whatever. Nationalism has some serious consequences, and you see it in that you have bills like the Patriot Act, which completely rip up, you know, things like due process, Gitmo, warrantless wiretapping, our Fourth Amendment protections, totally rip up what you know, one of the few things that would make America actually exceptional under the guise of patriotism, and I think it's a real critical thinking flaw that nationalism kind of creates. But
I think the only ism that's okay is individualism.
I would agree. I would agree with Lauren.
I wouldn't go that far, but
well, the thing about the nationalism and patriotism and some other isms is that it creates a name that certain people who are in the sphere of influence, that are kind of the people that are looked to for their opinions on particular subjects, being a part of this collective and identifying yourself in that particular collective gives power to people who are in the, you know, the driver's seat of these particular collectives. So in the parlance of patriotism, typically that's going to be used as a term by the Republican right to be able to squelch other people's opinions that are contrary to it, but mostly to have people who are in positions of influence be able to dictate what it is that a patriot does. And so if you are considering yourself a patriot, you're automatically subscribing to whatever it is that these people are saying is right, instead of making your own decisions as an individual to express whatever it is that your beliefs are. So nationalism.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but we're gonna go on for to the next topic. But I do want to kind of make a distinction between ideologies and coercion, right? And so the problem with isms, you guys have correctly identified them. Sometimes isms, you know, they are ideologies. Ideologies necessarily have thought leaders. Thought leaders sometimes replace critical thinking with just adopting what these thought leaders are saying, right? That's a problem. The real problem is when people use those ideologies to coerce other people. But ideologies in and of themselves, like libertarianism, like objectivism, they're also necessary for critical thinking. They're necessary for introducing new ideas, for examining old ideas in new ways, for coming up with better ways to do things. And thought leaders, again, are necessary for ideologies. So, you know, to say that we need to abandon all ideologies, I think is really problematic. And it's especially problematic within libertarianism, where we say, you know, if this is an ideology that often leads to a place of coercion, then we should reject every single aspect of it and not listen to it. That's a profoundly anti-critical thinking, you know, in a great way to stay ignorant way to go about it.
I want to be clear. I love objectivism. Obviously, I'm an objectivist girl, so I love objectivism. And it's not about ideologies. It's not about anything of that nature. It's about the fact that objectivism promotes individualism, and any ideology that promotes individualism is a good ism. That's what I mean when I say that individualism is the only okay ism, because as long as an ideology waters down to the individual should make the decision, ideologies help you get there. But at the same time, if it's not helping you get there to individualism, then it's a false ideology.
I mean, I wouldn't say that ideologies are either true or false. I think that most ideologies have true insights, and pretty much all ideologies also have either failures to grapple with certain insights or misunderstandings of certain insights. So And I would also say that, different people have different goals, and for some the goal is individualism because it leads to prosperity. So individualism is not their highest end, and that's good and okay, in my opinion. I mean, individualism for me is not an end in and of itself. It's a tool toward prosperity. So those are just important things to keep in mind. And if we understand that people can have legitimate goals other than individualism for individualism's sake, then you understand that other ideologies that aren't necessarily leading to individualism at their ends can have useful insights to achieving prosperity. But kind of moving on from that, it looks like half of America thinks that gay marriage is a constitutional right, that it's protected under the Equal Protection Clause. I was wondering, libertarians are pretty divided on gay marriage. It seems like there are kind of basically two extremes. One is that because the government should not be involved in marriage, it is wrong for libertarians to advocate for equal protection for same-sex couples. The other direction that a lot of libertarians take is that discriminating on the basis of gender for marriage rights is not an acceptable thing, and so as long as government is involved in the institution of marriage, then it should be offered to both kinds of marriage. Where do you guys fall on that? What do you guys think about? Are you surprised by this statistic, by this polling, and where do you guys fall on that?
I agree with what you were just saying. I think it's a contradictory middle, and to say that if government's going to be involved in marriage, that they don't protect all marriages. But I think best case scenario, we should get government out of marriage, because I think we should get government out of everything. Being an objectivist, I don't like government. I think they just mess things up, and I think marriage is one of those things that they've messed up. Personally, I find the institute of marriage to be old-fashioned and kind of backwards. If you want to be with somebody forever, then just go ahead and do that. There's really no need to sign up with the state in order to do that.
I would say that what we're experiencing with the state is kind of a humoring of various different groups, so as to prevent the waves of dissent from taking them down. And this occurred first when it came to the idea of having interracial marriages, and they had to accept interracial marriage as a acceptable form of marriage very clearly, because it was a huge amount of the population that was considering it, and certainly far more than the homosexual lobby was at that time. We didn't have a very large percentage of the population who was claiming to want homosexual marriage as a right during the time where interracial marriage was being considered. So then you have to have a movement where the population base grows to such a large amount and has enough voice, enough power behind it, that they can cause ripples within the cultural parlance that's going on. And what's going to continue to happen is that you're only going to get just little steps to accommodate the majority, the very large sector of population. So we're not going to see freedom for people to marry in polygamous relationships. We're not going to see freedom for people to marry in relationships where they may be related in some distant fashion somehow. But the government should not be involved in it at all. And so by just humoring those voices that are really loud and vocal, we're actually creating it a harder situation for those people to achieve freedom in the polygamist realm, for example. So wouldn't it have been nice if back in the day when the black-white marriage thing was going on, interracial marriages were being pushed, had they actually come up with something that had some sort of moral consistency, that was actually objectively evaluating the truth. And objectively evaluating the truth is that if I'm going to get married to whoever it is that I'm going to get married to, that's between me and them, and maybe some sort of arbiter that's going to sign our contract, or
right.
Between me and them, or my religious institution that we want to have it recognized by.
When you make the state the decider on morality, you're always going to find that the individual gets shoved aside. I I think it's absolutely ridiculous to have the state involved in marriage in any way, shape, or form.
But it's going to be
we're all agreed on that. But I want to take issue with your characterization that allowing gay couples to get married, to extend to them the same institution that we've extended to straight couples, whether that's right or wrong, is humoring them. I think that, and especially because we haven't extended it to poly couples as well. I mean, to me, that's like saying that ending Jim Crow was humoring people who think that separate but equal is an abomination, because we didn't then end, redlining.
Or
so, I mean,
the Indian,
I think,
for example.
Right. I mean, I think that, not specifically oppressing certain populations, to characterize that as humoring people who are offended by that kind of discrimination, it's not something that I wouldn't describe it that way. I think that progress is incremental, and that's sad. I agree. I think marriage, if it's going to be, again, offered by the state, should be open to groups, should be open to any gender, to any race, obviously.
But it won't be, because
you still have to make incremental progress.
Right.
The barometer of decisions by the government is majority rule, and the majority is that they don't want gay couples to get married, and they don't want groups to get married. They think polyamory is ridiculous and even childish, which I find completely irrational.
Well, it's actually a little. It's behind the populace. I mean, we've got the majority of people think marijuana should be legal. We've got half of people think that gay marriage should be legal. So it's actually behind the culture. The law is, and for the worse.
Oh yeah, I
generally say
it's still behind. It's absolutely still behind. But I'm saying that in the past, that's been the majority, and so the government hasn't even caught up to the majority. So they're doing a crappy job even just catching up to the majority. Right. And the fact that it's majority rule is the problem, but on top of that, they can't even keep up with majority rule. The idea of having a government is just ridiculous.
I want to make one key point, before we have to go. The term humor, maybe it's placate. Placate might be a better term, but they're ceding authority to people because there's a big enough voice, and they're accepting that they'll get shouted out of their office if they don't do it. So they're only responding because of fear, and they're not responding because of some sort of intellectual understanding of the fundamental truth of human rights. And so if we do the same thing with marijuana that we did with interracial marriage, we'll get marijuana legalized, and then maybe eventually we might get shrooms legalized, and then maybe we might be able to get I don't know, LSD, marijuana, or crack or cocaine or whatever. It's going to be incremental in everything, instead of accepting the fundamental truth that a person has the right to decide what goes in their body, or a person has the right to decide who they want to have an amorous relationship with.
Exactly.
So we have to break the paradigm that says, well, I got mine, I'm good now. And
I agree completely.
That's what the homosexual community is going to do once they get approval for their marriages to be legal. They're going to go ahead and say, you know what, I got mine, I'm good. And they're going to move on, and they're going to totally ignore the intellectual honesty that is required to accept that people should be free to marry whoever they want and however many people they want. Government should have nothing to do with it.
Well, the homosexual community is not a monolith, first of all.
That's true.
There are certainly homosexuals, a weird thing to say, gay people who advocate for marriage rights for whoever wants them. And also, for the gay people who are not interested in polyamorous relationships, they're an interest group. I'm certainly not going to fault them because they get what they want, just like I'm not going to fault the marijuana lobby for getting what they want and then, doing something else. That's why they exist. But I agree, ultimately it would be better if, we didn't redline, if we legalized all drugs, if people were allowed, if we were intellectually honest, all of us, and advocated for the rights of sovereign individuals to do what they want with their bodies. I agree. At the same time, I'm not going to alienate communities for advocating for the small government solutions that impact them directly so that they can achieve incremental change. That's just not something that I'm going to say, don't do that.
Right. So, Cathy, how many people do you think are actually really, truly informed on what polyamory is? Because maybe we should probably talk about that. What it is.
We're going to have to do another show. We've got 5 minutes, and I've not even gotten there. We're just going to have to do it. But, yeah, so I think most people are pretty ignorant about the entire umbrella of ethical non-monogamy. So do you kind of want to take a stab at explaining, or I can, but since you're the guest, what is ethical non-monogamy?
So ethical non-monogamy is open, honest communication between several individuals, and it's about the honesty. And the thing is that people assume that to be faithful, you have to be monogamous. To be faithful, you have to be honest. So faithfulness is measured in degree based on the couple. And as long as you follow the rules, you're always being faithful to the rules, because the faithfulness is not to the individual, it's to the contract that you've made with that individual. And all relationships, like economic relationships, should be treated as voluntarily and mutually beneficial. And if you're not pursuing your own rational happiness, then you shouldn't be in the kind of relationship you're in. Personally, I don't think there's anything wrong with monogamy. I think it's morally acceptable. Many couples find monogamous relationships to be very fulfilling, but there are other people that feel like if they're in a monogamous relationship, they're going to be pushing their partner to be something that they're actually not. I find that polyamorous relationships are much more loving and much more beneficial because of the fact that you're never trying to push anybody to be something that they're not. And I don't think there is a perfect person.
Sure. No, I think that's a really interesting insight, two insights that I didn't really expect, because I've not talked to many polyamorous or people who are interested in polyamory and are also interested in libertarianism. And so the two things were faithfulness, kind of a rethinking of what faithfulness means, and contracts. And so I'll kind of restate it. What you're not faithful to another person, you're faithful to a promise.
Right.
Right? And you think of that promise like a contract, and it says, whatever it says, you adhere to that, and that is faithfulness. So it may say you will only have sex with other people, and if you do, you have to tell me about it. The contract may say you can have sex with other people, but you can't tell me about it. I don't want to know about it. Whatever it is, the faithfulness is not to only have sex with one person. It's to do what you said you're going to do in regards to that person. And so in that way, in its emphasis on contracts and creating and maintaining contracts and seeing relationships as bound by contracts, whether they're legal, state represented contracts or verbal contracts or however you want to do it, it seems like polyamory is kind of in line with libertarianism in that way, and that emphasis.
Agreed. Actually, I find that polyamory is actually more in line with libertarianism, because polyamory, many polyamorous people view monogamy as ownership of another person. And so a lot of people that are polyamorous believe that being with multiple people and opening your partner up to be with multiple people is like saying you're free. You're a free individual, and if you choose to be with me monogamously, you do that each day. You decide what your happiness is for yourself. I don't own you. Right. I find that to be way more in line with libertarianism.
That's fascinating. We're going to have to do another show where we just pick up here, but we've got 1 minute left, so I want you guys to tell people where they can find your shows.
So obviously you can find Objectivist Girl on Facebook. That's the best place to find all of my content, because I do a blog and a show. I also do True Objective, which you can find on JRev Radio on Fridays at 6 p.m. Oh, wait, no. Yes, Fridays at 6 p.m. And then I'll be doing a show on the Voluntary Virtues Network called Hearts and Minds, which will be Thursdays at 6 p.m., and it should be really good. I'm doing it with Shire Dude, and we're talking about how to communicate the message of liberty, because a lot of people are talking about liberty, but they're not talking about how to actually effectively communicate it to outsiders. So that's what the show will be doing. So thanks for having me on, Cathy. I had a really good time.
Thank you for coming, Lauren. I appreciate it. Robert?
Well, of course, you want to check out Voluntary Virtues on every Tuesday from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And, of course, Lauren's times were in Eastern Standard Time. And after Voluntary Virtues After Hours, we'll follow that for an hour or possibly longer. And that's available at Voluntary Virtues on YouTube, or if you would like to check out Voluntary Virtues on Facebook, please do so. Also, my show on JRev Radio, Journalistic Revolution Radio, is from 7 to 9 p.m. on Thursdays, Eastern Standard Time. And that's it.
Wonderful. And this show is going to be Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays from noon to noon 30 Eastern, now daylight standard, whatever, Eastern time. And we'll figure out how to do calls in possibly at some point in the future. Thank you so much for tuning in. It's been real. Thank you so much to my guests. You guys were awesome. Very fascinating conversation that we're going to have to continue as soon as we all find some availability. Hopefully you'll be able to come on the next show, but if not, we'll get you on very, very soon. And I will see you guys on the next show, hopefully.
Thanks.